This is Nick with logosbynick.com, and in this tutorial I'll be demonstrating how you can create this simple ribbon with text on it using Affinity Designer. But before we get started, if you'd like to master the art of logo design, be sure to check out my Logo Design Academy. It's an 18-part video series where I outline my entire creative process for designing logos from start to finish, and I base all of it on my 10 years of experience designing logos professionally for my clients. So to get us started here in Affinity Designer, as you can see, I've created a new document. I've sized this at 1280 by 720. You can make your document whatever size you'd like, though. It doesn't really matter for this lesson. The first thing I want to do is create a rectangle on the canvas here. So I'm going to grab the rectangle tool over here, and I'm going to click and drag on the canvas to create a rectangle like that. And then I just want to center this up on the page. I'm going to come up here to the, I'm looking for the, let me grab the select tool first. I'm looking for the alignment button up here that says align center, and then align center, or align middle. So we're centering it vertically and horizontally like that. And now I'm going to click off of it to deselect everything. And now I'm going to grab the pen tool, which is over here. I'm going to click on that to grab it. And then over here, towards the top of the rectangle, I just want to click just outside of the rectangle to create a point like that. And then hold Shift and bring the line straight through the rectangle to the other side like that. And click again. And now we can press Escape on the keyboard to close the path. And what I want to do now is grab the nodes tool, which is over here, or you could press A on the keyboard. And I'm just going to click and drag this line like this, and then adjust these handles so that we have a nice curve going through this line. As you can see here, it curves upward, and then it dips downward, and then back to the starting point like that. So that's what we're looking for right here. A nice fluid curve like this. Okay, and once we've done that, let's go back to the select tool. I'm going to hold Alt on the keyboard and click and drag this line to bring it back up to the top here. I'm going to hold Shift to lock it onto the vertical axis. And I just want to put a copy of this up here for now. We're going to use this to place our text on that line later on. For this line down here, we're going to use this to create the shape of our ribbon. So I'm going to create another copy of this line. I'm going to hold Alt and click and drag again. Again, we're holding down Shift on the keyboard so we lock it onto the vertical axis. And then once we've done that, I just want to click and drag over everything. And I want to make sure that everything is aligned vertically. So I'm going to come up here and click this button that says Align Center like that. Okay. And once we've done that, now we can click off of the objects to deselect everything. Now what I want to do is select this line right here. Hold Shift and select this line right here so we have them both selected at the same time. And go to Layer. And we're looking for Expand Stroke right here. And that's going to change that from a stroke to an actual path. And once we've done that, now we want to combine them together. So we'll come up here with those still selected like that. Come up here to where it says Add, click on that. And now they've been combined together into a single path. And now I'm going to subtract it from this rectangle right here. So I'll hold Shift on the keyboard, click on the rectangle, and then go to Layer. No, I'm sorry, not Layer. We want to come up here to where it says Subtract. Click on Subtract. And now it's subtracted it from the rectangle. Now we want to go to Layer. So come up here to where it says Layer, Geometry, and click on Divide. And that's going to break this up into 3 separate objects, as you can see here in the Layers panel. So let me click off of that to deselect everything. Let me take this bottom object and press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of it. Let me take this top object and press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of it. And as you can see right here, we have the beginning of what's going to be our ribbon. So let me move this down a little bit towards the center of the page. Again, I want to hold Shift so that it locks it onto the vertical axis like that. And let's give this some color. I'm going to make this the color red. And I'm going to take the opacity of this and bring this down to roughly in half for now, because we're going to want to be able to see what we're doing beneath this object as we continue creating more objects. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a duplicate of this object. I'm going to hold Alt on the keyboard, click and drag, and then hold Shift so that we have a duplicate like this. It's almost looking like we have 2 strips of bacon right here. What I want to do now is grab the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to click and drag to create a rectangle going over the 2 of those shapes like this. Not completely, maybe leave some space sticking out there, as you can see that I did here. And let's go to the select tool. Let's select everything. And again, we just want to make sure it's aligned vertically like that. It's very important that we have these objects aligned on the vertical axis as we're doing this tutorial. Okay, so once you've done that, let's click off of it to deselect. Let's take this top little shape right here, this top ribbon, hold Shift, click on the rectangle on top of it, and then we want to create an intersection from it. So we'll come back up here to our little Boolean operations, and I want to click on this intersect just like that. Now we have the top part of the ribbon, and now I want to punch out the middle of this bottom ribbon to make this look like little fins on the end of the ribbon here. So let me grab the rectangle tool again. I want to make another rectangle. This one's going to be slightly smaller than the other one, as you can see that I've done here. Let me bring this in a little bit. Let me bring this in a little bit. About that size is looking pretty good right there. Let me grab the select tool and just make sure I have this aligned on the vertical axis like that. And then hold shift and click on this larger shape right here. And we want to subtract. Click on this button that says subtract. And there you go, you get something like that. Now let's break this up into 2 individual parts. To do that, once again, we'll go to Layer, Geometry, and Divide. And now that's 2 separate objects, as you can see indicated in the Layers menu here. So let me click off of this to deselect everything. What I want to do now is I want to take this object right here, and I want to use my up arrow key just to bring this up a little bit. What I'm paying attention to right here is the amount of space between the bottom of this object and the bottom of this object. I'm looking for about roughly this much space right here. I don't know how to quantify it. I don't have any measurements for you, so just go ahead and try to eyeball it. We're looking for something about that right there. I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. I'm going to go up on the keyboard, only I want to bring this one above the other ribbon over here. Again, we're looking for roughly the same distance in there as we have in here, so there, somewhere thereabouts is looking pretty good. Okay, so let me zoom out. Let me click off of it to deselect everything. What I want to do now is I want to create some objects in here that are going to represent sort of like shadows from the folded ribbon. So to do that, let's grab the pen tool. And then let's come over here and enable snapping with this little magnet icon right here. And I'm just going to click and expand this drop-down menu right here. Go ahead and pause the video right now to make sure that you have all of these options here selected on your snapping menu. And then once your options match mine, go ahead and continue on. So go ahead and check that out. Set up yours to look like mine, and then we're good to go. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in over here. To zoom in, I'm just holding Control and rolling up the mouse wheel. And to move around, you just press down the mouse wheel and move the mouse like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to snap to this corner right here. I'm going to bring this line up to about here. And then I'm going to snap to this corner right here. And I want to snap back to the starting point right there. Okay? So what I will do now is I will create another shape over here. I'll start at this corner. I'll bring this right to about out here, just outside of the top of this shape right here. Bring this down to this corner over here, and then back to the starting point like that. Okay, so I want to do the same thing over here. Again, pressing down the mouse wheel to move the mouse. I'm going to come on over here and do the same thing. Snap to this corner, bring this down to about there. Snap to this corner, bring that in there. Don't worry about how far down you go into the ribbon here. It doesn't really matter. As long as it's going into the ribbon and not short of it like that, you're good to go. So let me snap to right here and create another shape. Bring this right out to about there. Snap to there. And then back to the starting point as such. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, let's grab the select tool. Let's take this object right here, and let's duplicate it by pressing Control-C, which is copy, and then Control-V, which is paste. And I want to bring this to the front. I'm going to click this button up here that says Move to the Front. And then I'm going to hold Shift and click on this shape that we just drew with the pen tool right there. And with both of those selected, I'm going to create an intersection of them. So I'll click on Intersect like that. And there we go. That's what we're looking for. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Click on this object, Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste, raise this to the top, then hold Shift and click on this object and create an intersection from it over here using the Intersect button. Okay, so what we could do now is, let's take this main ribbon right here and let's raise this to the top where it says Move to the Front like that. And now I want to click on these little objects that we drew with the pen tool. I want to hold Shift and click on all of them so that we have all of them selected. As you can see here, I have all of them selected. What I want to do is get rid of that black outline, otherwise known as the stroke. I want to click on this little black stroke right here and then click the red X to get rid of it. And then click on the fill icon to bring that to the front. And I want to make this a darker shade of red. And we can actually bring the opacity of this all the way up now. We can start coloring this thing in a little bit. That's looking pretty good right there. I want to take everything. Let's click and drag over everything like this right here. Bring the opacity all the way up, just like that. And as you can see, it's starting to come together here. In fact, I want to make this a little darker. Not quite happy with how that came out. There we go. That looks a little better. Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, so we have the base of our ribbon in place. Let's put some text in there now. We're going to use this line right here to do that. So let me bring this down a little bit. Again, I'm going to hold shift so that it locks it onto the vertical axis. I'll bring this line down to about right here. And make sure you have this line selected, as you see I have here. With the line selected, go ahead and grab the Artistic Text tool, and then bring the cursor over to the line. And as you hover the cursor over the line, you'll notice the cursor icon changes from a letter A to a letter T with a squiggly line beneath it. Once you get that icon with the squiggly line, just click on the path, and now you should be able to add text to this path. So for this tutorial, I'm just going to use some placeholder text that says sample text. You can write whatever you'd like in there. I'm going to triple click on this to select all of it. And I want to change the font of this. I'm going to use something like Lead Gothic. I think that works pretty well for this sort of design. Like I said, you can use whatever font you'd like. It doesn't really matter. And let me make this a little bigger where it says 12 points. I'm just going to hover my cursor over that and roll up the mouse wheel a little bit. And I want to increase the spacing between those letters. So I'm going to hold Alt and use the right arrow key a few times to increase the spacing like that. That's looking pretty good. Now what I want to do is make sure that this text is centered on this line. So let's take this little green handle right here and bring this to the starting point. And make sure this little red handle over here is at the ending point. Mine's already there. Yours should be too. But if it's not, just go ahead and click and drag it over there. And now I want to center the text, or align center like that. And now it's on the center of the line. So let's grab the select tool now. I'm going to click and drag to move this text on top of the ribbon. I'm going to hold shift to lock it to the vertical axis. Bring this straight down like this. It's going to be positioned behind the ribbon. So let's let go of that and bring this to the front. Move to the front. And I'll take that text and I'll make that white. And let me just move that up a little bit. Okay. Now, based on your ribbon, you may have to adjust the size of your text. You may even have to adjust the size of your ribbon. Let me show you how to do that in case you have to do the same thing. So let me grab the text tool over here. I'm going to select all of this. I want to make this text bigger. This text can be a little bigger in this ribbon here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I want to increase the spacing. If you notice here, there's a lot of spacing between the A and the M, but there's no spacing between the X and the T. So I want to fix that real quick. I'm going to hold Alt and use the right arrow key to space that out a little bit. And I'll do the same thing over here. Put a little more space in there. Make this a little more consistent going all the way through. You don't necessarily have to do this. If you want to be meticulous about this, you go right ahead. Otherwise, don't worry about it. And maybe I'll move this down a little bit. Again, holding Shift so that it locks it like that. Let me adjust this a little bit. You know what we can do now? Let's select the text as you see that I have here. And then let's go to Layer and click on Convert to Curves. Okay, now it's no longer text. Now it is a regular object. I'm just going to use the arrow keys to scale this, to move this down a little bit. Okay, so I want to make this ribbon a little bigger because as you can see here, there's not much padding between the text and the edge of the ribbon there. So let me click and drag over everything to select everything, and then hold Shift and click on the text right there to deselect that. So basically we want everything selected except for this text right here. And now we'll go to the Nodes tool, which is right here. And I'm going to click and drag over these top nodes. I'm going to click and drag over these nodes in the top half of the ribbon here. I'm going to click on this, click and drag over this one, hold Shift, click and drag over this one, and then click and drag over these nodes as well. And with all of these nodes selected, we just want to press up on the arrow key a few times just to make this ribbon a little taller, a little bigger like that. That's looking pretty good. Now I'll take the text, do the same thing. I'll just move that up just so it's centered within the ribbon there. If you zoom out, it's really starting to come together here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little bit of a drop shadow beneath this text that matches this these shadows in the corner of the ribbon right here. So let's select the text. Press Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste, and then let's grab the dropper tool, which is right here, and make that the same color as this shadow. Grab the Select tool, and for this part, you're going to want to turn off the snapping, which is over here. We can turn that off now. We are done with snapping for this tutorial. I'm going to move this over here like this, and I want to lower that one step. Move back one so that it goes beneath the text, and that right there is looking pretty good. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little bit of a dent in the sides of these ribbon tails right here just to give them sort of like a stylized look. So let me select that part right there. Let me grab the Nodes tool. And I'm going to hover the cursor over the edge of the line right there and click to add a node or an anchor point. And then just click and drag to bring this anchor point in a little bit like that. We'll do the same thing over here. Click on that object to select it. Click on the line to add an anchor point and then just move this in a little bit like that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to hold Control, roll down the mouse wheel. I'm going to grab the Select tool. I'm going to click and drag over all of this right here. And I want to group it together by going to Layer, Group. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a little bit of a shear. So I'm going to come over here, this little line right here. If you notice, my cursor is turning into 2 arrows going left and right. When you get that cursor, click and drag to shear it. I'm going to hold Control so it shears it from the center like that. Maybe I'll bring the height of this down a little bit. And then I'll shear this upward like that. Just like that. Maybe rotate it around a little bit. And then if you click off of it to deselect everything, maybe adjust that a little bit like that. And you could play with it and try to transform it until you get it looking how you like. I like how this looks right here. I think I'm going to call it a day right here. That is our finished ribbon with text. So that's how you can go about creating something like that using Affinity Designer. If you have any questions, just leave a comment below. And as always, thanks for watching.